Incoming message.
8 sightings in 2026 alone. A massive, moving green anomaly photographed right near Urquhart Castle. And the absolute most credible witness of the entire year? An 8-year-old girl who had literally no idea what she was even supposed to be looking at. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to dive into the exact data points that make the 2026 Loch Ness phenomena an active, unfolding forensic mystery, rather than just, some old myth. We aren't here to rehash the folklore today. We're here to look at the hard, uncontaminated data that is actively challenging the established scientific consensus right now. Okay, so let's just start with the sheer volume of data hitting investigators this year. 8. There have been 8 officially documented sightings in 2026. To put that into perspective, that is the highest frequency of documented encounters in over a decade. We're not dealing with a one-off anomaly here or a solitary, blurry photograph from a single confused tourist. We are looking at a sustained, repeatable pattern of observation that, frankly, demands a rigorous forensic approach. Because this really isn't an isolated event. It's a rapidly accelerating timeline. Just look at how this year has unfolded. We started off in January with remote webcam monitoring, static, objective, but distant. Then things escalated significantly by April, where we had 2 Class A sightings directly from boats. That means close-range, direct visual contact right out on the water. And this all completely culminated in July with an incredible piece of data from an 8-year-old child witness. The data isn't just increasing in frequency, it's actually increasing in proximity and clarity as the year goes on. Section 1. The Psychology of a Witness. Overcoming narrative contamination. To truly understand why this year's data is just so special, we first have to analyze the psychology of a typical witness. Most historical accounts from Loch Ness are, honestly, forensically useless to investigators because of this concept right here: narrative contamination. Here's the biggest hurdle. Almost every adult who visits that loch has already seen the famous photographs, right? They've read the stories, they've bought the little souvenirs, and they've built up this psychological expectation. Because of this cultural priming, when they see a splash or a weird shadow, their brain unconsciously fills in the visual gaps to match those expectations. They are psychologically primed to see a monster. So, when narrative contamination is present, a witness is no longer just describing what's physically there. They're describing a mix of reality and their own preconceived narrative. When we break down the reliability of witnesses in these completely novel encounters, a fascinating divide emerges. Adults don't just suffer from being primed by culture, they also self-edit. An adult might see something totally inexplicable, but they'll tell investigators, "Well, I thought I saw something huge, but it was probably just a weird wave." They want to sound credible, so they rationalize the data away. But look at child witnesses under 10 years old. In forensic analysis, young children are considered highly reliable for novel encounters. Why? Because they entirely lack that cultural framework. They don't have that social anxiety about sounding crazy. They offer pure observation. They simply describe exactly what is there, which gives investigators an incredibly clean data signal. Section 2, the cleanest data point. Analyzing the perfect witness. And this brings us directly to July 2026. An 8-year-old girl on a family visit who had never even heard of the Loch Ness Monster delivered what researchers are calling the absolute cleanest witness account of the year. Listen closely to this specific quote from her account. She didn't say she saw a plesiosaur. She didn't describe scales or a flipper or some giant serpent. She described simply a big bump on top. This perfectly highlights the complete absence of any monster-related vocabulary or cultural priming. She didn't know what she was supposed to see, so she just described the exact physical geometry of what was actually in the water. Let's break down the exact parameters of her observation. She described a dark shape, very long, moving slowly toward the far bank. But the absolute most vital piece of forensic data here is her immediate physical reaction. It was genuine fear, not excitement. And this fear reaction was independently corroborated by an adult family member. The adult didn't even see the anomaly in the water, but they went on the record to confirm the child's absolute terror. In witness research, fear without expectation represents literally the cleanest signal you can get. It proves she wasn't just playing make-believe or trying to be part of a fun tourist legend. She saw something large, unknown, and terrifying. Section 3. The physical evidence. The Urquhart Castle anomaly. Now, a pristine psychological profile is fantastic, but we really need to pair that with hard physical evidence. Earlier this year, right near the ruins of Urquhart Castle, at one of the loch's widest points, a tourist with absolutely no prior interest in the phenomenon took a photograph. What they captured is this massive green mass submerged about 10 meters below the surface. The estimated diameter is a staggering 20 to 30 feet. Think about that size for a second. It has a defined boundary, a roughly ovoid shape, and a distinct green-brown coloration. And crucially, it was captured in motion. Marine biologists who have actually analyzed this photograph have noted that this specific coloration and defined boundary are highly consistent with a large biological organism. This brilliantly illustrates how we apply forensic deduction to such evidence. We don't just jump to wild conclusions. We systematically rule out the mundane explanations first. Could it be an algae bloom? No, because the photographic evidence shows a sharply defined boundary, and it was captured in motion. Algae would be diffuse and largely static. So algae bloom is totally inconsistent. Okay, could it be a boat wake or debris? No, a boat wake would be linear on the surface, and this was roughly ovoid and remember, 10 meters deep. So that's inconsistent again. But when we look at the hypothesis of a biological organism, the distinct coloration and unified shape actually match perfectly. It is the only conclusion that is fully consistent with the hard data.
Section 4. The Unsettled Science. 2019 versus 2026.
This undeniable surge of credible, cross-verified evidence brings us to a pretty major conflict with the established scientific consensus. A few years ago, the 2019 Scientific Declaration officially declared the Loch empty of any large unknown anomalies. But there was a critical flaw. It was based on an environmental DNA survey that failed to actually reach the bottom of the Loch's deepest basin. They made a definitive claim based on incomplete data. Compare that to the reality of 2026. An undeniable sighting acceleration. We have 8 documented sightings, massive photographic anomalies, and unprimed, highly credible witnesses. The data from 2026 doesn't just question the 2019 conclusion, it directly and forensically challenges it. The sightings haven't slowed down since science said nothing lives there. They've accelerated. So, as we step back and review the sheer weight of this year's data, the unprimed, genuine terror of an 8-year-old child describing a long, dark shape, and the photographic reality of a 30-foot green mass moving purposefully in the deep, we are left with an unavoidable question. If the science truly settled the debate back in 2019, why is 2026 providing the most compelling, uncontaminated data in the modern history of the Loch? I'm not here to tell you that a mythical monster is definitely real, but the data we've explored today tells us one thing for sure. Something unexplained is happening right now in Loch Ness, and the absolute best witness to it didn't even know what she was looking at.
Come to me, chickens! Cock-a-doodle-doo!